Hello, welcome to another episode of The Heart of the Matter. They say that passion is the driving force for an exciting life. Today, our guest's life is nothing less than magical. He's an award-winning Nigerian songwriter and music producer who started his career training as a lawyer before he went into full-time music. His name is Cobhams Asuquo, and our topic for today is The Dreamer. Cobhams, welcome to The Heart of the Matter.
Thank you so much, Omi. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to start with your story. So we all know Cobhams, the superstar, who has been with the likes of UB40, Olivia Wilde. However, what was it like? Would like to know the Cobhams before the Cobhams we know now. So what was it like
I'm not sure who the Cobhams you know now is, but well, I definitely do have a story. I was born the last of 6 children in a military barracks. And we lived in the place popularly referred to as the other ranks section. So if you were not a senior military officer, you lived in the other ranks section of the barracks. I grew up with parents who didn't have a lot, but they certainly had a lot of love to give. And they had to grapple with the reality of raising a blind kid, born in 1981, at a time when we didn't have as much options, and the computer and the internet and all of that had not sort of just taken the dimension that we see today with a lot of information and all that. So it was pretty much a struggle for them, but they did their best given the circumstances. So I grew up in the barracks, running around with used tires, as toys and stuff like that, and just playing with kids. And so it was, what you would easily refer to as humble beginning. And then I kind of progressed from there to King's College, Lagos, and that started to reform me and give me some perspective, in terms of like life and wanting more and wanting to do more. And of course, I read a lot of books, and I began to desire from then on to be, the person that I am today. So I think my life started pretty much from there.
Awesome. And what about as an up-and-coming musician as well? So how did you go into music?
I'd always wanted to play music, so I would go to church. First of all, a friend of mine, Wrangler, wrote to me, gave me his sister's piano and told me never to play it outside, because if I did, then his sister would collect it. And this was after a friend of mine had refused to let me touch his toy piano, and I had cried nearly all day. So, I wanted it badly enough, but obviously my parents couldn't get me one at the time. And, or maybe they could have, they just didn't know where to. I'm not sure what now. But anyways, I got this little toy piano, started playing it, and then I got a Casio from my godfather, because I was born Catholic. And then I progressed from there to start playing for the church. And then I would go to church in the mornings. I would go out, I would wake up, and then brush my teeth and literally hit the church. And I'd be there till 5 in the evening, just practicing on the organ, just trying to make music. And then I managed to get into studios. I slept on studio floors, all over Lagos, all the while dreaming that I would own my own studio one day. I made music for people. I made music that I didn't get paid for. As a matter of fact, my first song ever that I made, that made it to the radio, I was paid 10,000 naira, and it was quite a feat. And I just progressed from there. So I was making music, just giving my services wherever it was needed. I was crashing people's sessions because I just wanted to be heard. I wanted to be heard. I had so much music in me, and I wanted to express it.
So what about, you started off with law though before you went into music?
Yes, I did. I did start off with law.
Okay, so how, the change, what was it that made you want to do law, and then why did you decide to leave law? I think
I aspired to law initially because my father had said I would be his lawyer, and I kind of liked how that sounded. So, yes, I wanted to be. And then I was one of those people who believed, at a certain time in life that everything was relative, and black could be red depending on your ability to argue and prove why black is red. No matter how. How much, what's the word? It wasn't a question of just information. It was a question of arguing a thing for what I believed it was. And I felt like, that was pretty much the main prerequisite to being a lawyer. And I pursued law for that reason. And also, like I said, the fact that my father said that, I'd be his lawyer. And I was really excited about it. And I really wanted to do law. And, I had good grades. And for me, that just meant I would do, whatever it was. I could do whatever it was I wanted to do.
I remember you saying once that my whole life I've been doing it afraid. Could you please tell us more on that?
I think doing it afraid is pretty much a story of my life. You know, I mean, it's quite a feat to, you know, leave school in your third year and decide that you want to pursue music, and you're not even, you know, pursuing music in the traditional academic way of going to school, studying, becoming a certified musician or musicologist, as it were. I was pursuing music. I was, you know, going into the studio literally to be a T-boy. You know what I mean? To just make music with people, make music for people. You know what I mean? And you know, coming from the security and the safety of, you know, being a law student, you know, and having like your future ahead of you, into this uncertain, you know, this space where you know you're not sure where it's going to go. You know, was taking chances. You know, but it was a chance I was willing to take because, you know, the decision was mine at that point to make.
Is there a difference between doing it afraid and doing it in fear?
There's a huge difference between doing it afraid and doing it in fear. When you do it afraid, you're moving, you're doing it, you're conscious of the fact that you're making, you know, a grave. It's an important, very tangential, very crucial decision, and so the magnitude of that hits you. And sometimes it overwhelms you. Sometimes it makes you question whether or not you should be doing what you're doing. Sometimes you wonder if you're going insane. You know what I mean? But you keep moving because there's something in you that propels you. There's your passion. There's your knowing that, you know, this is it. This is the path for you. Doing it in fear is dangerous because sometimes you can do it in fear and not necessarily be afraid. You do it in fear because of security. You know what I mean? You do it in fear because of safety. You go into that, you know, doing it in fear sometimes sets a safety net, and it's very quiet. It's you then do it not necessarily propelled by passion or anything else, but just because, you know, you don't want to be on the bottom of the rung for whatever reason. You know, there's not necessarily, you know, a genuine reason. You know, it's not driven by passion. It's just driven by pure fear. And what happens even if you become successful doing it in fear is you cannot sustain that success because, you know, you're motivated by fear anyway. You know what I mean? And nothing good ever really comes out of fear. Yeah. So you try to sustain it, you know, by being fearful. And what happens is fear paralyzes you. And eventually, you know, you get to a point where you become paranoid. You either lose the will to do it, you start to suspect people. You literally tear your house down when you do it in fear, as opposed to doing it afraid, which is doing it with your heart in your mouth. And then, you know, making mistakes, you know, picking yourself up, dusting yourself up, and then trying again, you know, achieving great feats, and then being encouraged to move on, and then taking bigger things on, still afraid. So doing it afraid is very, very clearly different from doing it in fear.
Oh, awesome. We need to take a quick break. So after the break, we'll continue. Viewers, stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to the Heart of the Matter. We still have with us Cobhams Asuquo. Okay, so we talked about passion a lot before the break. How did you overcome the almighty money obstacle? Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people struggle with, especially people that follow their passion.
Yeah, I think for me, I guess I'm lucky in the sense that I didn't think about money at the time. When you're young and, you know, the responsibility to take care of yourself is not necessarily your own. Money is not what drives you at that point in time in your life, you know. So I started out just wanting to do it, and I think that's the advantage, you know, starting young, because, you know, the older you get, you know, the more responsible you become, you know, the more there is the need for you to fend for yourself, and, you know, other mouths to feed, and, you know, all these other different things. So for me, I just wanted to make music. I wanted to make, you know, I would go out to church and make music till 5 p.m. in the evening without having breakfast, and my mother would actually have people come out to me and say, look, I don't even mind you going out, but at least come and eat something and go back. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to do it more than anything else. And I think the lesson I've learned from that, and I apply it even to this day, is, you know, deal with it, you know, like you were young. You know what I mean? Forget about, I mean, money, you'll always get to that point where you can monetize, you know, your passion. But first of all, build it, you know, the drive to just do it, to want to do it, you know, build that first, and then everything else will follow. I mean, as the saying goes, follow your passion and the money will follow.
Why is it important to dream? Because a lot of people say, okay, dreaming is new age, but no, why is it important that you dream?
Dreaming is dreaming is stepping into the future you want to create. I mean, if you were walking, you'd have to look at where you're going. You know what I mean? And if you saw 10 meters away from you, that you would fall off a cliff, you'd probably not, I mean, if you're anything like me, you'd probably not step beyond the 10 meters from your fall. Yeah. And so in the same way that you see where you're going when you look with your physical eyes, that's how you dream, and you create your future in your mind, and then you begin to walk, you begin to take the steps towards what it is you want to become. So if you don't dream, you can't become. It can't just happen. You've got to want to do it. If you want to do something tomorrow, you know what I mean? You have to think of, you say to yourself, I'm going to go out shopping tomorrow. If you hate shopping, the thought of going out shopping tomorrow might make you feel tired. If you love shopping, the thought of going out to shop tomorrow might make you excited. But the truth is, when you say you're going shopping, there's certain things, it creates an imagery in your mind. You think of, depending on the kind of shopping, you think of, the things you would shop for, the items you would shop for. You think of, going to the till, paying for your stuff. You think of driving to whatever store it is. I mean, it's just, that by itself is dreaming, as short term and as basic as that is. So it's important for you to dream, even as it concerns your life. You desire to be this person. You want to see yourself sitting behind your desk, going through papers, talking to people, closing deals, interviewing people, making money, whatever it is, out on the court, playing your favorite sport or whatever it is. You've got to dream it, because if you can't see it in your mind's eye, it is impossible for you. I don't know how it'll happen. And if for some reason, by luck or some, unexplainable reason it does happen, you cannot sustain it because you never saw yourself there. So if you can write your dream down, write it, and not only write it, but say it if you can. Speak it, because there's power in the words that you say. So speak it and tell yourself. For instance, my mom always used to say, and I didn't understand the value of this then, but my mom always used to say, like when I would come home with like a toy and make music out of it, and the neighbors would gather and watch, and my mom would say things like, I knew you'd become something great in life. I knew. She didn't even say someone. Like, I knew you'd be. I know you'd be something great in life. I know you'd be something great. And I don't know what it was she saw at the time. I was just a kid having fun with a toy. There was nothing to it. You know what I mean? Or maybe I'd play the piano or whatever. I mean, but she always used to say it. And now I think back and I'm like, those words made me in a lot of ways. And I also know people who have been told to their faces that they're failures and they failed. So I think in addition to writing your dreams down, say it. Don't be ashamed. You look crazy to some people, but say it. And while you're saying it, work towards it, but keep saying it, because in speaking it, you convince yourself that this is the person you are. This is, and you eventually become that person. And then another thing to be aware of, I just, thought to add this while I was talking about, dreaming, and is realism. And I don't know if there's any words as realism, but for me, realism is, the counterfeit of your reality. It's the thing that while you're dreaming tells you certain things can't happen because. You know what I mean? So you're dreaming, of being this person. You're dreaming of being a runner, but you're an amputee or whatever it is, and it just seems like it cannot happen. There's nothing wrong with you being the first. I didn't know of any blind producer in Nigeria when I decided I wanted to do, music production, and it was. I asked myself questions. At times I was like, look, do you really want to do this? Because, you could be a lawyer, you could be a journalist, you could be anything else that blind people to do successfully. And, life would be hunky-dory. But I wanted to do this. You know what I mean? And I went for it, and I had to talk myself out of my realism, which is not easy. It never is, because your realism is quote unquote your existential reality. It's that thing that stares you in the face. How you have mouths to feed, and so you cannot change jobs. You know what I mean? How you have a mortgage or you have rent to pay, and so you cannot do certain things. You know what I mean? But you take a chance. How you don't have enough time. How you've lost too much time. I mean, whatever it is, but you take a chance and you do it. Or you don't do it and you lose more time, and you think, if I had done it then, perhaps I might have been here now. You know what I mean? So beware of your quote-unquote reality, which to me is actually realism.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Cobhams. We need to take a quick break. Viewers, there's a special surprise coming after the break. Stay tuned. Back to the heart of the matter. We still have with us Cobhams and also his lovely wife, Omilola Oshikoya. Omilola Oshikoya, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Omilola. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. So I've been itching to know your love story.
Okay.
Can you please tell us how you met?
Okay, my version. So we met at USIS. It's they had an education assistant library or something, basically for secondary school students who wanted to take the SATs, the TOEFL to school overseas.
Okay.
So they had a library where you could come study. So I was enrolled, and apparently he was enrolled. So I was enrolled, and I used to go there regularly to study.
You guys must be very brainy. I remember hearing of it, and I wanted
to Broad Street. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there one afternoon. Well, I got in there late one afternoon, and it was full. So I sat behind one of the teachers' desks. Well, I was about to go and sit next. The teacher said, "Go and sit behind her desk," and he was sitting down, like typing. So imagine he's sitting down typing, and there's a chair right next to him. Mm-hmm. But this desk is there, so I need to get through, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, "Excuse me," and he was like, "You're excused." And I was like, so in my mind I thought, this guy who, "Excuse me, you're excused." So I just thought, how is this rude guy? So I just kind of shuffled past, like, so I sat down. And so now I'm sitting down, so he's on my right.
Okay.
Then I started looking at what he's doing, because he's on his computer, and I'm like, then he occurred to me, I'm like, oh, he can't see. So I didn't realize he couldn't see. So he didn't understand that I needed to get past,
Okay.
So I was not really intrigued. So I was looking at what he was doing, then I struck up a conversation with him, and then by the time we got talking, I realized that a friend of mine knew him, because I went to Queen's College, he went to King's College, and we both graduated the same year, but we didn't know of each other. But a friend of mine who was in my class then used to talk about this particular guy in King's College. They used to share letters. So I was like, oh, so you're the one that my friend was talking about. And that's how we struck up a conversation. And then right before, on the spot, before he left, he took my number. And I was like, oh, how are you going to take my number? And he was like, oh, just tell it to me.
Oh, wow.
So I was really impressed, because he memorized it on the spot.
Oh, wow.
He didn't call me that night. He didn't call me that night. We saw each other the following day, and I jacked him. I was like, you didn't call me. And he was like, oh, don't worry, I'll call you. And then the minute I got home, truly, he called me. And we were on the phone for what? The rest of the day.
The rest of the day, and the rest of the weekend, actually.
And the rest of was a Friday, yes. So we were on the phone all weekend, racking up our parents' bills. I mean, I was 18, he was 20. So, we weren't paying bills then. And so,
yeah, it was landlines. I think was it landlines?
Landlines. So
yes.
you understand. Yeah. So that was how we met. And then, so we didn't date though for another. That was 2001. We didn't start dating since 2009.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I moved. We're just friends. Yeah. So I moved overseas. He stayed in Nigeria. So yeah.
Wow. So how did you know she was the one, Cobhams?
How did I know? People will give you like all these clues and tips and 10 tips to know she's your wife. Those things, there's the accuracy level. I think for me, you really just know, and that's not a very good way to put it, but that was what happened. I called her the first time that Friday, and we had chatted, about little nothings here and there. You know, do you have dogs? Do you not? How many are you? Do you do this? Do you like that? I, you know, taught her to get signal from her TV because someone had yanked out her antenna or something like that. And I told her to put a fork, you know, on the RF cord space or something like that, and that it might work being a conductor or something. And, you know, so we had talked and I got off the phone, or we both got off the phone. And as soon as I dropped the phone, I felt this longing, this instant need to reach out to her, to call her again. And I wanted to hold back because I was like, hey, look, man, you're a cool guy and you don't go out and do stuff like that. My mother, you know, used to tell me, or still tells me, that when you tell someone good night, you don't turn around and go right back there. You know, you wait till the morning. I was like, well, sorry to disappoint you this time, Mom. And I picked up the phone and called her, you know, and then I was wondering what she'd say, and then she picked up the phone, and I just went off, you know, and I was like, look, I know I shouldn't be calling you the second time, and, you know, I don't even know if this is the right thing to do, but, you know, I just felt like calling you again, you know, so I was vulnerable, and I was open, and I was loose, and I just told her, you know, look, and I felt like talking to you, and so that's why I'm calling back. And she was like, well, there's nothing wrong with that, you know, I mean, I wanted to talk to you too. You know what I mean? And I would have, and the minute she said that, I just said, in my mind I was like, look, I'm going to marry this girl. You know, so that was how it happened. Very, you know, fairy tale-ish, but I mean, that was it. That was how it happened. And then, you know, I would go on to ask her, maybe, I think the next month, I would go on to ask her, you know, that we should date. And she was like, no, you're like a brother to me. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? She friend-zoned me, yeah, for a long time.
So when did it change for you from friend zone to the...
It changed shortly after I graduated from college in 2006. Well, it didn't start changing, but I mean, 2007, I moved back for my youth service. And then 2008, I mean, obviously we'd been friends, you know, by phone and email, you know, months at a time we wouldn't talk. But by the time I moved back for my youth service and I was, you know, doing my youth service, then we started talking more frequently, and then you know, I just realized that he'd always been my best friend. Aww. You know, like he's home. I always say that home is where he is. Mm-hmm. You know, my heart is at home with him. I always say I don't really believe in a soulmate, but if I did, you know, he would be my soulmate. Aww, you know, so yeah, you know, if there is a concept of soulmate, then he's the soulmate for me. So I just fell in love with him, and it just went, I mean, within a year and a half, we were married. We got married December 2010.
Wow. So how'd you keep the fire burning? You were married for a couple of years, about 5 years. Mm-hmm. How'd you keep it going?
Just turned 5 years. Mm-hmm. Do you want to?
No, I think you should go
okay.
first.
Well, it doesn't feel like 5 years. We always tell each other that, oh, why is it that long? I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of humor. There's a lot of friendship. We're friends first and foremost. We were friends first and foremost. Like, we're really real with each other, but there's a fondness. I think when you genuinely like somebody, you know, it's like asking how do best friends from childhood stay best friends. Mm. You know what I mean? Mm. They see each other at 5 or they see each other at 50. You know, it's like asking how do best friends that are sisters or sisters that are best friends, how do they, you know what I mean? I think the friendship is just there. Yeah. So the love, the romantic side of love obviously has its dips and its ups and its downs. Life comes, children come, pressures, work pressures come, money pressures come, all sorts of pressures will come. But when that person is your friend, they rock with you throughout all of that. You know what I mean? So that you know you have a partner in life, you have a friend in life, so I think that really is friendship is really what keeps marriages. Yeah.
I think for me, I'm going to say something a little controversial, you know, and I hope I don't get into trouble for this, but I would say, especially for guys, you know, marry someone you love and not necessarily someone you feel loves you, because when you marry someone you love, even when you feel like they're driving you up the wall, for the fact that you love them, you're going to stay there and you're going to just give it your best. You know, I realized I wanted to marry her when I started asking myself certain serious questions. For instance, I was ready to forgive her for things she had not done. You know what I mean? I just, in my mind, it's like, so if this person did so and so and so and so to you, you know what I mean? And then sometimes it's easier said than done, you know what I mean? But just the fact that your heart is in that place, you know, where you're willing to accept a person come what may. You know, so for me, I think that's really important, because then you can tolerate, because life and living, you know, with one person in the same space, you know, for the rest of your life, you know, you need to be willing, you know, you need to be ready to tolerate, you know what I mean, and just, you know, enjoy, you know, being with that person, you know. And for me, I realized that, you know, there's, you know, no one else I felt as comfortable with, you know, as her. So I think that's very, and then also, yes, like you said, we're friends. We talk a lot. For us, there's always something to talk about, you know what I mean? And, you know, when everything else, you know, when everything else begins to, you know, fade away and you're God knows how old, all you have is, you know, just each other and the conversations and the memories and, you know, the simple things, you know what I mean? And I think we found the simple things early. You know, I think we found the simple things early, being able to, you know, talk, not being afraid to fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean, you know, throw things at each other or anything, but not being afraid to disagree. Yeah, for instance, you know, I realized that, you know, I can get into an argument with her and not feel, you know, afraid or feel like someone's trying to win. You know what I mean? You know, yeah. So we're trying to get information. We're trying to be better. You know what I mean? And so I think for me, you know, those are some, you know, elements that have worked.
You're working on something. Would you like to tell us about it?
Yes. I was working in corporate telecoms for a few years, and then I worked with him in his company. We worked together for a few years, and then, you know, he kicks me out. He's like, "See, this is not your God-given dream. This is not what God called you to do. Yes, you're called to be my wife, but you have dreams, you have talents. Please, I need you to go do them." You know. And so I was...
Plus, it's not really cool to mix business and romance.
Yes.
I need to put that out there.
He's not, at least for him.
Don't be talking to me about work like at 11 p.m. when, you know, I really want to chill and have a different conversation altogether.
Yes.
It just never works.
He's very... And like I said, I'm very efficient. If there's something that hasn't been done, I'm going to bring it up at 11 p.m. before lying down in bed. He doesn't like that. So.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I've had so much fun. I'm still having so much. I wish we could continue and do a part 2 on this, but we've run out of time. But before we go, I read this article, Lessons Learned from Blindness. Could you just quickly just tell us the lessons you've learned from blindness?
Well, the first for me has to do with failure. And I'm going to say another, you know, something controversial, especially in our contemporary religious society. We want nothing to do with failure, but the honest truth is failure is an important tool for success, because when you fail, you gain experience, and failure is all right as long as it's part of the journey and not the destination. Yeah, so I mean, I've done absolutely crazy things, and I like to say that, you know, I have failed forward and I've learned. You know, I've started a business without a business plan and watch it just sort of, you know, coast. You know what I mean? And I've learned, you know, from certain things to do things better. Now, these are things you can be taught in school, true, but, you know, when you're hit firsthand and you get that firsthand experience, you understand why things are the way they are. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I've failed, you know, a number of times with, you know, with certain things, and those things have made me better. But the thing is, I've never excused failure. So I think my first lesson is to never excuse failure. Never, you know, say that, you know, because we're Nigerians or because we're Africans and we come late. That's not true. You know what I mean? That's not who we are. You know, we can be timely people. We can be conscious people. There are conscientious people in Nigeria. We're not all rogues. We're not all, you know, it's not, you know, what... You know, the media out there, that impression, that's not us. You know, like she said, there's so much going on. You know, we're not, you know, controlling the narrative and telling our own story. So I'd say, you know, firstly, never ever excuse failure. Again, controversial, but this is pretty much how I've lived my life. You know, people will tell you not to trust anybody. Even the Bible says, trust no man. And I agree completely. But there's a certain level of trust that you have to exercise, you know what I mean, to function. As a blind person, you know, I trust people to lead me. And, you know, wherever they lead me, is pretty much where I go, because I mean, obviously I can't lead myself, and if you don't trust people, you become paranoid, and you don't get out, you can't do stuff, and part of doing it afraid is actually trusting, and believing that this thing is going to work. You don't have a reason. Sometimes you don't have as much information as you need to, which is something you should do. Get as much information as you can, and let it not be that you don't have information because you didn't try to get it. Let it be, that you don't have information, even after trying, and then you take a chance. So, but trust, at any rate, trust people, trust that not everyone is out to shaft you and throw you under the bus. Trust that you will meet good people. Trust that you will attract your kind. Trust that your your idea will go well. Trust that, it will yield for you. Trust that moving to a new place might be just what you need, to get a fresh start. Trust. So for me, trust is the other lesson, and I learned that, from being blind. And of course, the third lesson is focus. When you're focused on one thing, you're blind to everything else around you. Laser focus is exactly that. That's why you can cut through anything, because that light is not beaming on anything else other than the spot, other than the bullseye. So focus is blindness in my mind. So yes, firstly, never excuse failure. Secondly, trust even when you don't have a reason to. Thirdly, focus. Focus creates blindness. You need to be blind to be focused.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much, Cobhams and Omilola. I personally am so inspired. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I'm sure the audience too are inspired by listening to the two of you talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And hopefully we'll find a reason to bring you back on the show. Viewers, we hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Until next week, stay blessed.